Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to be going over my Necromancer. This is a PvP, PvE tank build. You can move some abilities around. This is an Oaken Soul setup. Oaken Soul is just the easiest way to PvP right now. You don't have to worry about buff up maintenance. You don't have to worry about armor, defensive up maintenance. You just worry about healing yourself and killing people. And I'm not worried at all about the nerfs coming to Oaken Soul. A 10% nerf to a 10% nerf to Empower is not going to affect this build whatsoever. It's not even going to affect heavy attack builds. So let's jump into this here. This is an oldie but a goodie type build, and this play style, if you look at Anthris 2.0 from almost 2 years ago, I was pushing health recovery builds. And since that point, health recovery has been completely killed in PvP. And at one point, I was even able to achieve a 10k health recovery build. So every 2 seconds, I had 10k health coming in, and that thing was really darn tanky. You could be bursted down, but it was going to take a group effort. But anyways, we moved away from health recovery and we went into a Bash Crow. I think Bash Crow right now, outside of if you've ever seen my Witcher, which is a bow necro, a bow crow. Bow crow is my preferred way to play necromancer right now. Definitely over this play style, and definitely over Mag Crow, which would be my Beetlejuice. Bow crow keeps you out of the mix and is just a fun play style for me. But if you enjoy being in the mix, this is the way to go. I would take this over the Beetlejuice right now, the Mag Crow. So let's look at this here and we'll go into everything. So first thing is, you can see we've got Oaken Soul and we're using the bash damage enchant because we are a Bash Crow, and you'll see how the damage really lines up. The tooltips on this are pretty nutty. And the damage output is really sound, really solid on it. But almost 800 bash damage, additional damage because it's infused. Okay. The first set that we've paired it with is Deadlands Demolisher, and Deadlands Demolisher is a craftable set. Adds max stam, weapon and spell damage, max stam. Your bash deals an extra 900 more damage. When you bash, you also deal 4,800 physical damage in a cone in front of you, interrupting any enemy's hit. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds. So this effect occurs very often with our rotation, and so that's a lot of free damage built into a set if you embrace the bash. Okay. And the next set that we are running is Knights Errant, and Knights Errant is an oldie but goodie, but it's max health, max stam, weapon and spell damage, and then adds 450 weapon and spell damage to your one-hand shield abilities. When you use a one-hand shield ability, you heal for 1800 health. Two of our abilities are one-hand sword and board shield abilities, and so those are rewarded or valued by that. The 450 weapon and spell damage, it's weird because bash attacks don't scale off of weapon and spell damage. They scale off of bash damage, which is, like, you can see this actual enchant, right? That's how you drive up your bash damage, and so it's really weird. I don't know if they've changed that at all and they've added some type of scaling into weapon and skill damage leading into bash damage, but anyways, when we look at our bash damage, you can see our bash damage is 4810. Okay, so when we bash somebody, we're going to hit them for 4810. The thing about this is if you're running around with, say, a 10k D swing that's on a 0.8 second cast time, my bash actually is instant cast and hits for more than D swings right now. It's really silly. But let's look at the stats here real quick. We're going to buff up here. Okay. Okay, you can see max mag's 20k, max health is 41, 42k. This will get almost 43. I'll show you how. 22 on our max stam, 1300 on our max stam. This is important. 600 and then 900 on our mag recovery. You can see our resistances here when we hit our resolving vigor. Our resistances are 30k, almost 31k. If you're a Nord, this will be almost cap resistances, and I might actually, Nord would be probably the better play on this because you are in the mix and you are taking damage. Nords have a built-in ult gen. As you're taking damage as a Nord, you'll build ult, which is really good considering we have our ultimate is 250 ultimate. It takes a while to get to it. Okay, so 30k as a high elf or cap resistances as a Nord. Run Nord. Not really worried about our physical pen for the most part. We do have a sharpened main hand weapon for a little extra pen in there. And we get some pen through some passives when our blast bones are summoned and stuff like that. And you might have to be in combat. I don't think we'll have anything to target here for it, but it ends up being like 750 extra pen, I believe. So stats aren't bad. I can tell you that stamina recovery, you do need to run the Serpent Mundus Stone to at least get your stamina recovery there, and then when you pop a potion, it'll end up jumping up to about 1400. Now, if you wanted to run about 10k less health and be in the 30k health and then give yourself a little bit more max stam, you could do that, and in that moment you could switch to switch to a regen food. So or Zorga's smoked bear haunch, and smoked bear haunch would give you an extra 300 recoveries, and so that might be the play if you feel like you are getting stam checked, which is a thing on this build, by the way, and it's because of its play style. When you're bashing, you're expending stamina in some cases, so we'll talk about all that as we get to it. Okay, let's look at the tooltips here real quick, and the abilities. We are in PvP right now. We're in CP IC, and so we have our shielded assault. This does 4,800 damage, and it has almost a 7k damage shield. This is an important ability because it is our stun. It's our hard CC, and it gives us a damage shield, which allows our resolving vigor ticks, our health, heal over time to sustain us. Also, if we are being offensive and we're using this ability, we're going to get a heal through Knights Errant. Okay, so speaking of that, let's jump back real quick. Sorry, we are running a one-piece heavy Baron, and the Baron Zudris has recoveries across the board, or max stats across the board. You're not gonna hit the 20k without that. You could run recoveries there on a different thing, or you could run max, just pump your health even higher and be at like 40k max health, 45k max health on a Nord, you know, if you ran armor of the trainee here. Okay, so let me look at these pieces before we jump into the abilities here. Sorry. First thing is we've got a heavy reinforced. We're trying to drive our armor up as high as we can, and then we've got reinforced and heavy with the prismatic enchant. Then we've got heavy and sturdy. I don't block often, but when I do block on this, it's because of one of our abilities, and it basically cuts the next bash attack that we do in half. And so reinforced, Knights Errant, heavy, and just health, trying to drive our health up as high as we can on both these, trying to drive our health up even more. Well fitted. We did need to cut the dodge roll cost on this because we are running all heavy, and this is Divines, which is I think just what we had, but I would run either reinforced or well fitted on this, or M-Pen, and we are running M-Pen on that with max health. So max health, max health, max health, max health, max health, and then we've got two with the prismatic enchants. You could run prismatic on all of these if you wanted. It really doesn't matter. It's just kind of min-maxing the thing. Definitely run bash enchants on all your jewelry, and I can tell you that the gold jewelry is the best way to go for a bash build. It drives that bash damage up to a respectable level. You can see we are running a sharpened maul. Doesn't matter that it's maul when you're running sword and board, but it being sharpened does matter, and we're running a reinforced shield to drive our armor up as high as we can. So we would definitely be a cap resistances spell and physical resistance the way we have this set up. If we were a Nord, might be the way to go. Okay, not worried about the pen. Our critical chance, crit rate is actually pretty respectable considering we're in all heavy armor, so that's pretty nutty. And then on this particular type of build, because we said about the weapon and spell damage and the scaling with bash damage and stuff, it's just a weird situation. You don't necessarily need your weapon and spell damage super high. Outside of it, weapon and spell damage does affect your heals on this setup, and so we need our weapon and spell damage at a respectable level so our heals are halfway decent. Okay, so at least hitting the 4K on all heavy armor is advised. Okay, let's jump in the abilities. We'd already talked about damage shield. 7K damage shield is pretty nice on a tank. It's going to take them a little bit of time to get through that. In a 1v1, a 7K shield is going to give you a couple seconds and 2-3 ticks of this resolving vigor to go off, and you can see that that's 1600 down at the bottom, non-crit, so just 1616. You'll get 2 or 3 of those, and that sustains you in 1v1 fights. The reality of it is the damage on this lines up so well that if they see the 40 to 45k health, they think you're a tank and you can't do any damage. They usually, like, what's the rule of thumb with tanks? You ignore them, right? You go for the 20, 25k health squishies, right? And so this allows you to kind of run freely in battlegrounds from time to time, and the big scrums, the big fights where everybody kind of knows what's going on. They ignore you to start, and then they realize that their face is bashed off. So that is pretty nice. Anyways, shielded assault, point blank. It's a gap closer. You can use it to hard stun someone at point blank range, or you can use it to pull you out of stuff. So you can use it both offensively and defensively. So if you're stuck in the middle of 3 people and the 4th's running up, or there's some other dude running off on another team running away, use this to gap close to him, and then peel yourself out of the group. So offensively and defensively use this. You can see my tooltip on my power slam is 12k. This is nutty considering this is in some cases almost 1,000 to 2,000 more than a D-swing, and this is an instant cast ability, and this also has the chance to have a 50% cost reduction if I hit block real quickly. So if I'm fighting someone and I see them lining up a D-swing, I'll hold block and then turn around, and my next power bash on them is going to be cut at half cost. And not only am I mitigating their D-swing by 70%, they're expending full stamina trying to hit me with the D-swing. I see it coming because it has a 0.8 second cast time on it, so I can just block D-swing, and all my damage, all my power slams are cut in half, right? So they D-swing, I block it, and they give me the damage, or they give me the cost reduction, and I'm hitting them very hard and stunning them whenever they're off hard CC immunity. So this ability's damage is considered bash damage and interrupts the enemy if they are casting, and that's why those enchants on the jewelry are very important. But 12,000 physical damage, instant cast, has the ability to be very cheap. We are running Blighted Blast Bones. This is a stamina morph of the Blast Bones. Almost everybody likes to run the mag version because the mag version has a higher tooltip. I don't care about the higher tooltip. I care about the Major Defile for 4 seconds, which cuts their healing received. And also an 11k Blighted Blast Bones that is smart cast, right? If my reticle's aimed in their direction and I summon it, it most of the time goes to them, okay? And it will blast their face. So the common rotation is summon the blast bones at the person that I'm going to hit, gap close into them, stunning them so they aren't going to be able to hold block as the blast bones hits, and I hit them with a power slam. Also, I have my interrupt set up as my mouse wheel scroll up. This is a very important part of a bash build in my opinion, but when I hit, I don't know if you can see this, but when I roll my mouse wheel up, it's doing multiple bashes, okay? And sometimes the bashes like don't even align with how often you see me bashing. There'll be 3 or 4 of them in the time that you see just 2 bashes going on. And it really depends on the cadence at which you're rolling your mouse wheel and the clicks. The animation doesn't line up with how many bashes are going out. So because of that, I will channel a heavy attack into my power slam, and then as the power slam is, he's pulling his shield back and he's getting ready to go, I'll scroll my mouse wheel up. And so he'll do the power slam right into 3 or 4 bashes, pop, 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 pop. And those bashes are hitting for 4,800 a piece. So, you know, you're going to see 2K to 2,500 bashes, multiple 2K to 2,500 bashes on a target behind, you know, a 7 to 10K power slam on the target. And the blast bones is going to hit really hard too for 7K. And so there's a lot of damage there, okay? Our resolving vigor, we're about 19 or 20,000 on our resolving vigor. That's okay. I think on my Kratos at one point I had it up to 38,000. I think right now we're at 30,000, so about 10,000 more than that. But that's because we are really focused on weapon and spell damage, and this ability scales off weapon and spell damage. When you're running a bash setup, you don't focus on weapon and spell damage, you focus on the bash stuff. Otherwise your bash hits like a noodle and it's just a long painful death for you. Okay, so you need to be able to put people away. After casting this, you get minor resolve. That's what gets us to the 30K on the high elf, and that's what will get us to cap on the Nord. We are running resistant flesh. This is a burst heal. The only couple bad things about it, the cost is a little high. I'm not worried about it. It's my only mag cost on this setup, and I've got 20K mag with sugar skulls, so that's fine. If you're in a fight and you're fighting 3 or 4 people and you got a teammate there with you, if they occasionally this goes to your teammate and not you when you need it, and so that is annoying, but not much you can do about it. It operates differently than, say, the DK burst heal. Why can't I think of it? Coag, right? Coagulating blood on a DK is a burst heal just for you. Can't send it to anyone else. You get it every time. So DKs are really, really in a nice spot right now, like the best spot. Anyways, this does apply minor defile to yourself, which isn't that big of a deal because the minor defile cuts your health recovery. Our health recovery is so low that the 8% isn't going to affect us anyways. We're not a health recovery build, but we have a class passive that when we have a negative effect on us, we receive 7% more healing. So we're really, when we use this, we're only inducing ourselves with minus 1% healing received. So it's worth having the burst heal on it. Now I did try other healing things. I did try Spirit Guardian. It's, you know, while active, get 10% less healing. The problem is this basically functions as a hot, and this is a hot, and the hot, 2 separate hots on you wasn't enough to, it's not a burst heal. And so when you're targeted, they'll burst right through your 2 hots. Even if you're being like super offensive and Knights Errant and trying to get the damage output and trying to get the shields and the 2 hots going, and you got 10% damage mitigation, doesn't matter. They can burst through this, and so that wasn't working really well. Another thing too, you can see Anthris isn't going to stick around. He'll probably only make an appearance once a year, and we'll update our Necro build. This is, if I were going to play a Necro tank in PvP, this is for sure where I would play it at. And you can see the gameplay clips at the start too. That's kind of fun, but so I'm just not going to finish this out, and I have too many other projects that I want to do. Like, we want to do a lightning staff heavy attack build, since you know, ZOS doesn't want to address that really, and so we're just going to melt people's faces. But anyways, this play style was the most successful play style that I've found for a Necro tank right now. A lot of the content creators tell you Necros aren't in a really strong spot. This was the strongest I could get a melee Necro, and with the combination of tanky, the combination of damage, and everything. So we've got cleave damage here. Even though this is single target, the cleave damage comes from our Knights Errant. Hard stun with the shield, cleave damage that applies major defile, and then our 2 heals, a hot that gives us minor resolve, and a burst heal. And then finally, the icing on the cake for this build is the Pummeling Goliath, and become a destructive Pummeling Goliath, increasing your health by 30k for 20 seconds and immediately restoring 30k health. So when you're getting really low on health, this is an instant heal to full, more than full, right? While transformed, your damage from light attacks restores 1,000 health, and fully charged heavy attacks 2,500. This ability scales off your max health. Your bash attacks can hit multiple targets in front of you and deal 10k physical damage. And with your mouse wheel set up as your bash damage on this, you just scroll your mouse wheel up, and it's rapid fire cleave damage going out, and Knights Errant firing every 2 seconds, and so you can see that from the gameplay footage. And because you are executing a bash attack, Knights Errant is also keep healing you, and so it's just an immense amount of damage output right here. And so just these two are a pretty nice combination, paired with the mouse wheel scrolling up combo. And then you add this to the tail end of it, where you're doing that just a crazy cleave damage with Knights Errant going off, summon a Blast Bones, gap close into a group, and then just go ham. So now the interrupt damage, or interrupt, is a little odd. So like, you can see I'm bashing or interrupting right now, and I'm getting stamina back. So that's important to know. When you go into Goliath, there have been times where I'm in Goliath and I'm rolling the mouse wheel up and just nuking everyone, and my stamina is still going up. I don't know what's going on with that. If, you know, that bash is not even considered a stamina cost, or, you know, the stamina cost that's supposed to be associated with me bashing other players didn't activate, or if it's a UI error, I don't know. But there are times where my stamina is going up and I'm full Tommy gun, you know, chainsawing people with that bash. And so I'm not going to complain, but there's something there that doesn't seem, you know, balanced or kosher. I don't know what you want to say, but that's why this makes this a viable build. Okay, the damage on it's really, really scary. The survivability is pretty good. You need to figure out how to handle the sustain on it, unless you want to drop your health from the 40 to 45k down to the 30 to 35k and switch over to Orzorga, Smoke Bear Haunch, and, you know, put those stats that you would have had in health, put them into stamina, so that way you can get your stamina to the 25k and then run the recovery foods. So let's jump into our CP, and we'll call it a day here. Okay, right now we're running Steed's Blessing, gives us an extra 20% movement speed out of combat. Rationer, it extends. If you're using the expensive food, this will save you a lot of money. Treasure Hunter didn't really matter. Now if you're out in Cyrodiil, run Gifted Rider and War Mount. Switch Treasure Hunter for that. I probably could do that, but I'm not going to spend much time out in Cyrodiil with this thing. It's just not my preferred play style. Untamed Aggression, increase your weapon and spell damage by 150. That's needed to drive up our overall weapon and spell damage, so our 2 heals scale somewhat respectable. Okay, so you do need that. Wrathful Strikes is needed for 205 weapon and spell damage, so paired those both together. And then Swift Renewal. And Swift Renewal is going to, in the blue, let's go to that real quick. I'll show you where these two are. Focused Mending, increase your healing done with a single target heal by 10%. So our Resolving Vigor, this will increase that by 10%. Increase your healing done with a heal over time effect. This also increases our Resolving Vigor tooltip. Okay, so this is a single target heal too. Our burst heal is resistant flesh. It's either you or someone else, and so that will buff that as well. So we're buffing our healing here, and we're buffing our healing here. We're not buffing our damage necessarily. Okay. Rejuvenation, increase our recoveries by 90%, both all health, magic, and stamina recoveries. Fortified for an extra 1700 armor. Max health, we're driving that up. And celerity for an extra 10% movement speed. I think there is increase your bash damage by an extra 120 there in CP. That is an extra 120 bash damage is nothing. Nothing. Okay, so if you don't have the extra points, don't worry about putting that in there, because that ends up being 60 extra damage on a player before mitigations. So it ends up being like 40 extra damage on a player. So they really need to, like, if you want bash builds to be actually somewhat more viable than this one that I put together, more used, this needs to be probably quadrupled or something to that effect. You could, you know, let's make this like a Occult Overload type damage, right? If you were to put all points into this, it ends up being like 5k extra damage, you know. So I would probably set up Bashing Brutality very similar to Occult Overload. So see how it has stages, and as you put more into it, the more dangerous you get with it. So might actually see more bash builds if that were better. Okay, so that is a CP. That's the game style. This is a thematic build for me. I tailored this after I play a mobile game, and one of the characters looks just like this guy, and I thought, you know what, let's patent our Anthris guy after that guy. You know, let's mimic that character. It looks pretty cool. Oh, last thing here. Let's go to the style. Okay. We are using Ebon Shadow Shoulders, and we're running Transluminal Violet. You get Transluminal Violet from killing Molag Bal in Imperial City sewers. It's in the middle of the sewers, the intersection, the large round room, and you got to kill 3 portals and kill the banners that come out, and then kill Molag Bal. He explodes on death and drops 3 Telvar. Congratulations. No, he drops like 5 Telvar, and occasionally like a 1 or 2 million skin. But anyways, Fire Drake's Gauntlets, Dremora Greaves, Dremora Cuirass, Dremora Girdle, Dremora Sabatons or boots. Okay. Symphony of Blades Sword has a really nice visual effect on it. And then we're running the Gloombound Shield. So the shield disappears when it's on our back. The character that I patent this off of that's on the thumbnail, he only has a one-handed sword and no shield. So there you go. As far as this other stuff, so we're hiding our helm right now. Our hairstyle is going to be the draping locks. Cuts in front of the ears, which is pretty cool. We use that on our Legolas. And major adornment is for our crown, Star Made Diamond. And the skin we're using is Meridian Purified. And our personality is the Commander, where they fold the arm back behind him. So, do I recommend this playstyle? Right now on a Necro, or Stam Crow, I would say, or a Tank Crow. Yes, this is the play. This is the way. This is what the one of the best setups. I did test a lot of things on Anthris, and it was extremely, immensely aggravating, infuriating. And this was the best we could do. Okay. Disclaimer at the very end, some things that you're going to run into. Stamina maintenance on this can be tricky. Sometimes your bashes are expending stamina, sometimes they are not expending stamina. You need to be very cognitive of where your stamina pool is at, and I think my break free is 5100 on this, and so I have an internal alarm set up that if I'm nearing the 5k max stam left in the tank, I start channeling heavy attacks, you know, and so I'll maintain my heals, but I'm just in heavy attack mode trying to get my stamina back up to a respectable level. Okay, but breakthrough is 5100, and if you're fighting DKs right now, which are broken as all get out, and they're not going to fix it, you might as well run it, which is my main too. I'm saying this from a place of love. I love my main DK, but I can tell you it's broken as hell. DKs can hit you with a fossilize, and it hard stuns you and immobilizes you. So you break free of the hard stun and you find yourself still immobilized, and you have to break free from that as well. That's 10k stamina. That's half of our stamina pool. And then they hit you with a fossilize, and the fossilize right after that, they hit you with fossilize, and fossilize will stun you. You have to break free of that, and it immobilizes you. The stun from fossilize, you'll get the CC immunity from a hard CC, but you do not get the CC immunity from an immobilization. So the immobilize, you break free from that or dodge roll out from that, and then they turn around and hit you with the talons, and you're immobilized again immediately, and that's another 5100 stam recovery. 15k of our max stam is gone in the very first CC round against a DK. Okay, and that makes, I've said this for the past year, 2 years actually. I have podcasts going back on this. This video's become a rant, but they need to fix this. This is a problem you'll run into with a 21k health. If you're playing a stam DK that is on their game with their CCs and they're running both fossilize and burning talons, they'll stam check you, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're stam checking most everybody. Okay, so that is a disclaimer. You run into a DK, you're probably going to die. Another thing too about DKs is when they hit their corrosive armor, you want to go into defensive mode. Not necessarily dodge roll mode, but you're going to be holding block, and between his whips or between his D swings, you're going to use your cheap shield assault. You don't want to expend a bunch of stamina though while their corrosive's going. It's all about survival or get away from them during that time frame. But DKs have a 100k pen when they use their corrosive. Okay, so they will full pin you. Your resistances don't matter against DKs, so they can stam check you and they can burn through cap resistances. Super balanced. Okay. That's my sales pitch for this build. If you really like necro tanks and you're stuck on a necro tank, I can tell you this is probably one of the best ways to play it though. And you're in a tough spot right now in the game. And I wish the best for you. Okay, bye.